Okay, I have a new project today. I'm going to try to make Cosi bread. And I worked at Cosi for a while actually, so you'd think that I would already know how to make their bread. But I don't. All I ever learned to do there was to make sandwiches. So I've been trying to reconstruct how they make their bread, real crackly flat bread. And there's a thread on Metafilter, Ask Metafilter, where they went over it, and they came up with a recipe that they found online, and the people on the forum said that it kind of worked well, but there are two things wrong with it that I know from working at Cosi. One, at Cosi they definitely use milk in their mixture, and this recipe that they were using on Metafilter didn't have that. So I'm going to make a couple of adjustments and then try that out and see how it works. Alright. First step is to take some yeast and mix it with some warm water. Okay, so that's going. Next I have to mix the flour. It says 1 3/4 cups of this all-purpose flour and then 1.5 cups of semolina flour. Not that you can tell, but I got this at the co-op. Mix that with some salt. So far we're still according to the recipe online. But things are going to start to change. Okay, so my yeast has gotten kind of nice and bubbly, foamy. I'm going to mix that with my flour, and here's where the recipe changes. It says to add about 3/4 cup of water at this point, and I'm going to add milk. I think that's going to give me what I need here. Okay, I got the dough all made. I oiled it up a bit so it won't stick. Now it has to rise for an hour, so it's a good time to put on a movie. We're watching Once. Okay, so an hour has passed, or about an hour. We finished watching the movie. So it's on to the next step, which I think could be a critical one. I mentioned before that there were two problems I saw with the recipes online. The first I said was milk, and then I never said the second one. The second one has to do with the crust. And I think anyone who's ever had Cosi bread, you know that the crust is what it's all about. It's what everyone on the forum was talking about, on the thread was talking about. If you've never had Cosi bread, or if you don't even know what Cosi is, it's a sandwich place. I used to work there, and the bread is really crusty and really good. So a lot of talk on the thread was about how to make that crust happen while you cook it. But what I know from working there is that the bread has that crust before it goes in the oven. It has a my phone's ringing. I'll get it in a minute. It has it's kind of flaky before it goes in, and the recipes I saw, they didn't talk about that. So I don't know if maybe it happened for them on accident, or they just didn't talk about it, or what. But I'm going to try something that I've seen them do, which isn't. So now the recipe says you gotta punch down your dough after an hour. So I'm going to do that, but instead of just balling it back up and putting it back in my bowl, I'm going to roll it out flat, so that when I get that crust, all I have to do is flatten the bread even further. I don't have to spread it all out and knead it again and everything. I won't lose the crust if a crust forms. I'm not sure if a crust is going to form, so that's one of the things we're going to find out here. Alright, so that's that. I'm going to roll it out, flatten it a bit, wait another hour, and we will see if I have a crust. Another hour has passed, actually more than an hour, almost 2 hours, more than 2 hours. The crusts are not really hard yet. They've definitely expanded again, but they haven't really gotten a crust. I did do a bonus batch of wheat. So I got 2 here, these guys, and then this guy. I think I'm going to cook one of these now, though, just because I'm kind of hungry and I want to see how it goes. But I think a critical element could be time, so I'm going to let the rest of these just stay for, you know, for a couple more hours if it takes that, and see if they form that crust. You want to roll it out till it's about ½ an inch thick. Here's another thing that wasn't really captured on the thread. They talk about putting butter on it right before you put it in the oven. I don't, as far as I know, when I was at Cosi, I never saw anyone use butter. So what they do use is olive oil. So I got that, and I'm going to brush olive oil on it, on the top, and I'm going to put salt on that. So another thing is I bought a baking stone today. I think you could probably get away with not having a baking stone, but everything I've read says it's good because you have to cook at really hot temperatures, and so the stone helps keep the heat going. But another thing is that a friend told me you need steam, and I've seen that you could put ice cubes in the bottom to steam it up. That helps crisp up the crust a bit. I don't know how much is too much for this, so I'm just going to throw this in there and see what happens. So while that's cooking, I actually started thinking we're approaching 3 hours since I first set these guys out, and I seem to remember something to do with refrigeration. So I'm going to put one of these in the fridge. I'm going to be kind of angry if I find out that we're supposed to refrigerate it before this, but I think it can't hurt at this point. They are, I mean, I feel like they're kind of maybe, they're getting a little bit harder on the outside, but they're really not where they need to be. So see what the fridge does. Alright. I overcooked this a bit, as you can see. I didn't want to open the oven because I didn't want to let the heat out, but this actually turned out pretty good. And wow, you hear that? Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, it's hot. It's hot, but it's pretty good. So we'll try it out. This is actually really close, but there's two problems. There's always two problems. It's doughy. I said it's undercooked, but it's also kind of dense. It needs to be fluffier and bubblier. So, not sure how to deal with that. And what was the second problem? Well, the second problem is just the outside look. You know, when you're there, when you get that crackly crust before you start, it just looks better, and it gives you a lot better texture. But we're not done, so we'll see what happens next. So, a couple of things before we go on. One, I don't think this dough's really going anywhere. It's creeping up on 3.5 hours now, so I'm going to put it all in the fridge. And here's what I'm thinking, that it's too late to put it in the fridge, really. But next time I do this, what I'm going to do is, after the first time you punch down the dough and then you lay it out, when I roll it out, I'm going to put it in the fridge right then for like an hour, and then take it out and get it back up to room temperature. So already I'm thinking that maybe I'm not going to get that crust that I was hoping to get. But that said, this is not Cosi bread, but if this is as good as it ever gets, it's still really good. I had some cheese, I had a little bit of wine here, and it's outstanding. I mean, it's a little chewy, but like I said, if this is as good as it gets, it's still worth it. But stay tuned, because there will be more.